Hi, welcome to the part 10 of this video series. Here we are covering AZ 304 important exam questions. If you have seen my previous videos, the chances of same question or similar questions coming in the exam is pretty high. So please focus on the concepts and don't just certify the questions and answers. Please subscribe to my channel and like my videos. Please drop in your comments because this gives me a lot of motivation to keep posting similar contents. Please remember this channel is totally dedicated to help you clear cloud certifications, whether it be on Azure or AWS. Now let's focus on the questions. For questions 1 through 60, please refer parts 1 to 9 of this video series. So this is again a similar question that you saw in the previous part, but there is a slight change in the solution that has been provided. So what it is doing is you have a user on premises, and then you have some resources on premises as well as on cloud. Now what you have to do is, if someone is in the office, suppose you work for TCS and you are in the office. When you are in the office, from there you should be able to access the resources on the cloud platforms without providing your signatures, like credentials. It should be automatically signed in. You see this word automatically signed in. So that is a question. So what it means is you have to provide a single sign-on solution, and the solution they have given is install and configure AD Connect server, which is perfect because you have your on-premises, you have Active Directory on-premises, and you also have an Azure Active Directory, and then uh, they both need to be connected so that even if you are on-premises in the Tata Consulting Services uh, building, from the corporate building, but without providing the credentials, you would be automatically signed in if you're accessing the cloud apps on the Azure platforms. So that is the goal. So the first thing you have to do is, whenever you have such requirements, you have to put a AD Connect server. So this looks correct, perfect. The next thing it says is you do a pass-through authentication. What is a pass-through authentication? So if someone is trying to access the applications on the cloud platform, it will do a pass through. The moment the connection goes to Azure Active Directory for validation, it does a pass through directly to on premises. It's like two people are there, and you put a request to one person, that person will automatically send the request to the other person because the other person has the ability to authorize. So it's the same thing here. Whenever you try to access the apps, the validation request goes to the Active Directory on the Azure platform, and it says, "Boss, I will not take care of this. I already have on-premises Active Directory taking care of it. They will authenticate." That's pass through. Now there is also something called hash sync up. So what happens is, uh, in hash sync up, the Azure Active Directory will not say, "Boss, I already have on-premises setup. You please validate." It will not do that. What it does is it syncs up. So at any point in time, whatever person one knows, person two will know. Whatever person two knows, person one will know. There is a sync up. And if there is a hash synchronization happening, the moment you try to access the app and you put a request to Azure Active Directory, it says, "I am well capable. I have all the data to validate you," and it will authenticate. So in this question, this solution is correct. That's why we will mark this as yes. Yes is the answer, right answer. Let's move to the next question. This is the same question, but in the previous question we talked about password hash synchronization. So your Active Directory is installed both on premises and on Azure cloud, and both are syncing with each other. Both are in sync. So whatever users are there registered on premises, it will be also there on Azure and vice versa. That's why you need a connect server, which the solution says that is perfectly fine, and then you use password hash synchronization, that is perfectly fine, and this will also meet the goal. So the answer should be yes. So this is the right answer. Let's move forward to the next question. So this is the question. First, try to understand what is the story behind it. See, this question is simple. What it is saying is, you need to design an Azure policy. This is a policy related question, Azure policy. And whenever you create new resource, no, the tag assignment should happen automatically. If there are existing resources, it should identify whether the tags and values match the tags of the resource group. So when you create a new resource, for example, you are creating a virtual machine. What it is saying is you should use the same tag values that should match with the resource group. to which the resources are deployed. Suppose I have RG1 as a resource group and I have a VM1. Now this VM1 I'm putting in RG1. So the tag and value that I should use should be same as that is defined at RG1 level. Then same should happen for existing resources. Existing resources it should check like whatever resources are there, does the tag and value match with the resource group? If not, then you have to take some action. So what is the action you have to take? You have a non-compliant resources. Suppose you have VM2 which is deployed on RG1 but it is not using the same tag, etc., and VM2 was already existing. Then in that case you have to trigger an auto-generated remediation task to create missing tags and values. Okay, so some auto-generated task you have to call. There is a bit of automation here and it will automatically update. It will update what it will update, tags and values. So there is an update happening, and the solution must use principle of least privilege. Least privilege means only what you need you will get that access. Suppose you have a building, suppose Infosys, you have a building in Bangalore, and you are coming as a customer. The customer client briefing center is on the ninth floor, suppose. Then this customer should get access to get into the front gate and ninth floor. If it goes to second floor, third floor, he cannot open it. That is what is needed here. So that is the principle of least privilege. You give the person access to only those things that they require. For example, the client only needs access to ninth floor, so you should not give it access to whole building like that. Now which Azure policy if they create, which policy effect is in use in this case? See, this enforce OPI and rego policy has been decommissioned, decapricated and decommissioned. It is no longer valid. So your answer has to be between append and modify. I'll show you this in the documentation also. See, you see this documentation, the following effects are deprecated, so these two options are gone. Now we have to use something between append and modify. Let's see modify. My answer should be modify. See, there are these many policy definitions. Let's go into modify. If you see modify, it clearly says it is used to add, update, remove properties tags on a subscription or resource during creation. Okay, so you can do that. So in this case we have to do for resource because we are creating a resource. VM2 is a resource and it is not complying to what tags are being used in RG1, so we have to update that resource. Okay, so this is the right answer. See, append is used to add additional fields. This is the key. Append is not used to update the existing fields. So you already had tags and values, you want to update that. That's why you are using modify. Here if you want to add one more field, then you have to use append. So in this case, in this question, we do not have a use case for append here, so that's why modify is my first answer. Let's see the next question. So this question, Azure Active Directory object and RBAC role to use remediation task. So for example, uh, for existing resources, you found that the tags and values are not matching and these are non-compliant resources. So you have to trigger a remediation task automatically to create missing tags and values. So in here, since this has to be done automatically, auto generated, a managed identity is better than a service principal. So the managed identity is actually a service principal but without hassles. Okay, so for example, I had explained in the previous questions. Suppose you are a developer and you want to access other applications, and every time you don't want, suppose you are writing a ETL program and the ETL program is accessing multiple data sources. So every time you don't want uh, the credentials to be entered, so you can have a managed identity created. So we now know that last two options cannot be the answer. Service principal is not an answer for this. Now out of managed identity with contribute role and user access admin role, which one is correct? So contribute role is needed here, contributor role, because you will need to update these values and tags, but access administrator role is not required here. Access administrator role is required because when you have to give other users access. That is not the need here. You just have to update or insert new tags. So contributor role will suffice. So these are the two answers. Now let's look at this question. So for me, these are the keywords which will help us answer this question. So the story goes this way. There is an Active Directory hybrid solution. That means you have an Active Directory on premises and an Active Directory on Azure cloud. Okay. And what has happened is your internet connection to on premises is lost. So the Active Directory on premises is not available. It is only available in Azure. Now you want the authentication to work seamlessly. So it's pretty evident that if on premises cannot be reached, then the authentication has to happen by Azure AD, not on-premise AD, because on-premise AD cannot do anything because internet is not there. Then the authentication should happen by Azure AD. So out of these options, for me, the first option is correct. This option is correct because hash synchronization, what it does is whatever uh, was on premises, whatever was inside Active Directory on premises, it is synced with the Azure Active Directory and vice versa. So for a short time, say this in this question, you should assume that this lack of internet connectivity is just for a short time. So in that short time, if any user is logging in, they will have that Azure Active Directory will have those details for the user to validate and authenticate. So hence it will work. Now option B, pass-through authentication will not work. What pass-through does is you're trying to log in some resource, suppose a VM. You're trying to get into the VM, you put these credentials and Active Directory in Azure takes those credentials, and in pass-through what it does is it just passes it through to on-premise Active Directory. Now if it tries to pass it through to on-premise Active Directory, internet is not there, so the request will not go to the Active Directory on premises and this will fail. So B cannot be the solution. So option C, federation. Federation, always remember in federation what happens is the request is sent to on premises Active Directory for authentication. And since the internet connection is not there, the request will fail and hence C will not work. It is wrong. So A is the final answer. Now this question for me, the keyword here is pre-authenticated. See, what it is saying is you have a virtual machine. Okay, that virtual machine is on Azure and you have an application, ASP.NET application. Just assume that there is an application and from the internet. So you are, suppose you are working for a company and from that company via internet you are accessing that application. So you should be pre-authenticated, okay, by Active Directory, by Azure Active Directory account. Your so your suppose you have a ID AD001. This ID should be pre-authenticated using Active Directory account before you can connect. So in this four options, I mean, I will not even go into technical details. Just looking at these options, common sense says here you require something to do with Active Directory. You don't need load balancer. These A, B, and C are a type of load balancers. So option D is the right answer. So we will log this answer and move forward. See, the story goes is there is an Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, okay, and you need to deploy a Cosmos DB database, and you have to provide a solution so that specific user accounts with read access can access Cosmos DB. So here, uh, so in a nutshell, the pain point here is you have a Cosmos DB and you want specific users to have read access to that Cosmos DB. Now, first option, if you see SaaS, so this is used for giving temporary access. So suppose you are a corporate, suppose you are working for Infosys and you have some resources, and then a contractor from your preferred vendor company, he joins, and you want to give some temporary access because he has joined for 2 months for some specific set of work. Then you can use SaaS and give that person a temporary access. But here you don't have to give a temporary access. You want to give a permanent access, but read only access to Cosmos DB. So option B suggests certificates. See, there is no need of using a certificate here because we are not talking about encryption. When you are talking about encryption, like for data at rest or data in motion, then certificates comes into play. So B is wrong. It is not linked to this question. C looks correct because um, you will need IAM role assignment to provide a read access. So if you see this resource tokens, it is a fine-grained permission model based on native Cosmos DB users and permissions. So this is our answer. Let's look at option D. We already got our answer. Option C is the right answer, but we should also understand why D is not the answer. Azure information protection policy. Suppose you have storage, some lot of documents put on Azure Blob Storage, and then you suddenly one day realize that some documents have credit card mentioned inside them. So how would you scan? There are hundreds of documents. You cannot manually open each one of them and you know process it or delete those information. So you can build a information protection policy, and it will put a logic and see if where credit card informations are there, and whichever documents have those information, uh, it will protect it. So this is the right answer. So let's look at this question. So the company has these divisions, East and West. For example, East, assume Assam; West, assume Gujarat. And then there are Azure subscriptions. So there are two subscriptions in East, two in West, and there is one tenant in East and one tenant in West. So you plan to deploy a custom application to each subscription. The application will contain following: a resource group, web app, custom role assignments, and Azure Cosmos DB account. You need to use Azure Blueprints to deploy this application. So if we understand what are blueprints, it is like a template. So we know, if you see this piece here, this piece is your inventory. What is needed? This piece is your inventory, and for this inventory, you can create blueprint. This is just a template, like infrastructure as a code. Just a template, and it will create it. Now it is asking what is the minimum number of objects required to deploy the application. So out of these, like, we have to choose options for management groups, blueprint definitions. So if you see management groups, we have two AD tenants. So we should have two management groups. So this should be two. Now blueprint definitions, that means how many template you will create. So you can create one definition for entire stuff, no? One definition, but multiple assignments. So assignments can be four. So the assignments would be at subscription level. Since we have 4 subscriptions, that's why assignments will be 4. So we will lock our answer and move forward. So now this question, see, the first line is just uh, not not important for answering the question. So just focus on this text here. So look at this text, which is important to answer the question. So what has happened is there are several login attempts to the Azure portal from countries where administrative users do not work. Sometimes consider the case where a company has its portal users, admin users in USA and UK, and some unauthorized access is being made from Lithuania or Romania. Uh, so something of that sort is happening, and you need to ensure that all login attempts to Azure portal from those countries require multi-factor factor authorization. So, for example, consider in Romania and Lithuania, you don't have administrative users. Whenever someone is accessing from there, you want to put one extra layer of validation, that is via MFA. So usually what happens is if the admin users are in USA, they can just enter their username and password. That's it, and they will access the portal. But if someone from Romania is accessing the portal, they will have to first enter username and password. They will press enter. Then they will get a code, the multi-factor authorization code. There is an app. That is one form of MFA. In the app, a code will come, and the screen will prompt to enter that code. Once they enter that code, then they can access the portal. So why they are doing it is they want uh, any unauthorized, or when they see that admin users are not there, so they want to make sure that it is not a question of someone got their hands on to someone else's username and password. Just entering the username and password, they can enter it. So that's why they have also put MFA. So in order to solve this problem, the solution that the question has given is access package. Now, what is access package? Suppose someone new gets onboarded uh, to a company, and now there must be 3 systems they need access to and 4 data sources they need access to. So every time, instead of giving access to each one of them, they can create an access package so that they know that if someone is joining the data warehouse team, they will need access to these applications. So as a package, the access would be provided. Here, the access package will not help you with putting additional control like an MFA. It will not help you with that. That's why the answer here is no. This is the right answer. Now let's look at same question but a different solution. So this is same question, but what is the solution they have given is, now this is the solution they have given. Use identity protection for group 1. If you see this documentation, identity protection has 3 tasks. So primarily what it is doing is it will detect and remediate any identity based risk. So you know that your users are not in Romania, but who is accessing from Romania? If you want to understand that, you can use identity protection. You can create a multi-factor authentication registration policy. You can create this. So the answer here is yes. Let's move forward to the next question. Same question, but a different solution. So the solution this time is to create access review for group. The answer is no in this case. The reason for that is, see, access review, why it is used on a regular basis. If you want to send an alert to the administrators to review that whether these people should still have access to these resources. If you want to do that, then access review can be used. And another thing that access review does is it will trigger these emails on a regular basis, whatever frequency you set, and then that administrator will have to decide whether he still needs to approve or disapprove. If that person doesn't take action say you set that number of days as 3 or 5 days, then it will automatically, the access will be revoked. That is the use of access review. Now access review has no role here, because you need here to understand, you have to put something in place so that you can identify who is accessing, from which location they are accessing, and provide additional authentication to just validate that this is a authorized access. So access review will not help you here. This is no. So you have this question, blah blah blah, some stories there. Primarily what is important is, you need to ensure that admin 1 and admin 2 are notified when more than 5 events are added to the security log of VM and VM2. So there are two VMs, VM1, VM2, and both will have some security logs. If there are more than 5 events happening, the administrator should get mails. Okay, 5 events. If there are more than 5 events in the period of 120 seconds, then the administrator should get emails. Events, what can be events? Like somebody, some access, attempt of access, or someone trying to, if there is a database on VM, someone trying to stop the database and restart it. If that sort of thing happens 120 seconds, in 120 seconds 5 times, that means in 2 minutes, if it happens 5 times, that means some abnormal activity is happening. That's why they are suspecting that, and they want alerts. What should you do? So there are different options. All of them are having some count of action groups and alert rules. So here what will happen is, the action group. What is action group? We have to understand first. See, action group is a collection of notification preferences defined by the owner of the subscription. For example, Azure Monitor and Service Health Alerts use action groups to notify users. So that's why action group is needed, because we want to notify users. But how many action groups? I think here one action group is sufficient. You don't need two action groups. Just because there are two VMs, you need two action groups? No, you can create one action group and one alert rule. The same alert rule you can configure to work for sending emails to both the admins. Just because there are two admins, so you need two alert rules? That's not the case. And since there are two VMs, you need two action groups. That's not the case. One action group and one alert rule will solve the problem. So this is our final answer. Please subscribe to my channel. This brings us to the end of part 10 of this video series. See you in the next part.